Driverly.com, unlimited drama series.
If marriage is a contract, I missed the asterisk about the fine print. My name is Rick Mason, and at 39, I thought I had life figured out. Project manager at Midwest Logistics, decent salary, nice house in Cleveland suburbs, and a wife who still turned heads at company parties. Valerie Mason, operations executive at Premier Packaging, ambitious and sharp as a razor blade. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Valerie sat across from me at our kitchen table, perfectly dressed for another day of corporate warfare. Her blonde hair was pulled back in that severe bun she favored for important meetings, and her navy suit looked expensive, more expensive than I remembered buying. "Working late again tonight," she announced, not looking up from her phone. "Big presentation tomorrow." I studied her face, noting the careful application of makeup, the subtle perfume that seemed too strong for a typical workday. "Third time this week. Brad really has you burning the midnight oil." Bradford Shearing, her boss. 48 years old, silver-haired, the kind of guy who wore $1,000 suits and drove a BMW like it was a birthright. I'd met him at office parties, firm handshake, politician's smile, the way he looked at Valerie a beat too long. "It's an important account," Valerie said, finally glancing up. "You understand." I understood more than she realized. The wine I'd bought her last week, her favorite vintage, sat untouched in our refrigerator. The lipstick stain on a wine glass I'd found in her car. The new perfume, the late-night showers, the way she turned her phone face down whenever I entered the room. "Sure," I said. "I understand perfectly." After she left, I walked through our house. My house, really, since I'd made most of the mortgage payments while she climbed the corporate ladder. Everything looked normal, but normal had become a carefully constructed lie. I found myself in her home office, staring at the desk where she claimed to do so much work. Funny thing about liars, they always leave evidence. Evidence. The credit card statement she'd forgotten to hide told an interesting story. Expensive lunches at hotels, charges at boutique stores, a jewelry purchase I'd never seen her wear. My wife was living a double life, and I was apparently the only one not invited to the party. That evening, I made a decision that would change everything. I bought a bottle of her favorite wine and drove to Premier Packaging's downtown office building. Surprise visits were romantic, right? At least that's what I told myself as I rode the elevator to the 15th floor. The office was mostly empty, just a few dedicated souls working overtime. I walked down the familiar hallway toward Valerie's corner office, the wine bottle feeling heavier with each step. Her door was slightly open, warm light spilling into the darkened corridor. I pushed the door open and froze. Valerie was there, all right. So was Bradford Shearing. She was sitting on her desk, her expensive suit jacket on the floor, his hands in her hair. They were kissing with the desperate intensity of people who thought they were alone in the world. Confidential reports were scattered across the desk beneath them, but I barely noticed the papers. I was too busy watching my wife of 8 years wrap her legs around another man. They didn't see me. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds, long enough for the image to burn itself permanently into my memory, then quietly backed away. The wine bottle slipped from my numb fingers and shattered on the hallway floor, but they were too busy to notice. I drove home in a strange, calm state. No tears, no rage, just a cold, calculating clarity I'd never experienced before. Valerie had made her choice. Now I would make mine. That night, I sat in my home office with my laptop and a cup of coffee, methodically destroying the life we'd built together. I blocked her access to our joint credit cards, transferred funds from our shared accounts to my personal account, and changed the locks on our house. By morning, I'd effectively locked her out of everything. When I finally went to bed at 3 a.m., I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: satisfaction. Valerie thought she was playing games with a fool. She was about to discover that fools don't always stay foolish forever. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. Wednesday morning arrived gray and drizzling, matching my mood perfectly. I called in sick to work, the first time in 2 years, and spent the morning making preparations. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, watched from her window as I changed our front door locks. Nosy old woman, but her gossip network would prove useful soon enough. Around noon, my phone started ringing. Valerie's name flashed on the screen repeatedly. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to her increasingly frantic messages. "Rick, what's going on? My credit card was declined at lunch. Call me back." "Rick, this isn't funny. I can't access our account. Call me immediately. Rick, I'm coming home. We need to talk about this like adults. Like adults. That was rich, coming from someone who'd been conducting her affair in her office like a teenager. I had work to do. My friend Pete owned a bar called Murphy's on the east side. We'd known each other since college. He was the kind of guy who'd help you move a body without asking questions, though hopefully it wouldn't come to that. More importantly, Pete's cousin Danny worked in IT security and owed Pete several favors. You look terrible, Pete said when I walked into his bar that afternoon. The place was nearly empty, just a few regulars nursing beers and watching daytime television. Thanks for the pep talk. I slid onto a bar stool and accepted the beer he offered. I need a favor. Figured as much. You never come in here during the day unless someone's in trouble. What did Valerie do now? Pete had never liked my wife. He claimed she was too polished, too ambitious, too good at making people believe whatever she wanted them to believe. I'd always defended her, right up until yesterday evening. She's having an affair with her boss. Pete's expression darkened. You sure? Caught them in her office last night. They were going at it like the world was ending. What do you need? This was why I valued Pete's friendship. No judgment, no lectures about marriage counseling or working things out. Just a simple question about what came next. Information. Danny still work for that security company? Yeah, and he's still got connections all over the city. What kind of information? I explained my plan. Pete listened without interruption, occasionally nodding or raising an eyebrows at the more creative elements. When I finished, he was grinning. You're more devious than I gave you credit for, he said. Danny can definitely help with the office building security footage. Might take a few days, but he can get what you need. Good. There's something else. I pulled out my phone and showed Pete the photos I'd taken of Valerie's credit card statements, the hotel receipts, the jewelry purchases. I need these to reach the right people at her company, anonymously. HR department? For starters. But I'm thinking bigger. Board members, department heads, anyone who might be interested in knowing that their operations executive is conducting personal business on company time. Pete whistled low. You're not just going after her. You're going after both of them. Bradford Shearing has been taking advantage of his position for years. I'm just helping bring his activities to light. That evening, I waited in my living room, with all the lights off, watching through the front window. Valerie's car pulled into our driveway at exactly 7:30. She sat behind the wheel for several minutes, probably trying to call me again, before finally getting out and walking to the front door. I heard her key scraping uselessly in the lock, followed by increasingly aggressive attempts to force the door open. Then came the knocking. Rick! Rick! Open this door! We need to talk! I stayed perfectly still, watching her through the window. She looked frazzled, her perfect corporate armor showing cracks. Her expensive suit was wrinkled, her hair coming loose from its professional bun. I know you're in there. Your car is in the garage. The knocking became pounding. Mrs. Patterson's porch light came on next door, and I saw her curtains twitch. Good. Let the neighbors see Valerie's desperation. After 20 minutes, Valerie gave up. She returned to her car and sat there for another hour, making phone calls, probably trying to reach Bradford, though I doubted he'd be eager to help her with domestic problems. Men like him enjoyed the affair part, but wanted nothing to do with the messy consequences. Finally, she drove away. I waited another hour before turning the lights back on. My phone buzzed with a text message from Danny. Got what you need. Pete says you're doing God's work. Package ready tomorrow. I smiled for the first time in days. Phase 1 was complete. Tomorrow, the real fun would begin. Thursday morning brought sunshine and possibilities. I dressed carefully in my best suit, the one Valerie had bought me for our anniversary last year. Irony had always been my favorite literary device. Danny met me at a coffee shop downtown, sliding a manila envelope across the table like we were conducting some kind of espionage operation. Inside were printed photographs from Premier Packaging's security cameras, time-stamped and crystal clear. Valerie and Bradford in compromising positions, scattered across several dates and times. Building security is a joke, Danny explained. Most companies never review their footage unless something gets stolen. These cameras have been recording everything for months. The images were damning. Valerie and Bradford in her office after hours, in the conference room during lunch breaks, in his office with the blinds drawn. A complete documentation of their affair, courtesy of Premier Packaging's own surveillance system. What do I owe you? Danny shook his head. Pete says you're family. Just promise me you'll make it count. Oh, I will. My first stop was Premier Packaging's main office. I'd been there enough times for company parties that I knew the layout. The HR department was on the third floor, run by a stern woman named Margaret Collins, who took company policy violations very seriously. I slipped into the building during the lunch rush, when security was minimal and people were focused on their own business. The HR department was mostly empty, just a receptionist who barely glanced up when I walked past. Margaret Collins' office door was open. I could see her at her desk, reviewing documents with the intense concentration of someone who genuinely cared about her job. Perfect. I left the envelope on her desk with a simple note. Thought you should see this. A concerned employee. By the time she returned from lunch, I was long gone. My second stop was the office building's main lobby, where I knew the employee bulletin board was located. I posted copies of the most damning photographs, along with a note about inappropriate workplace conduct and misuse of company resources. Subtle, but effective. The third stop was the most satisfying. Bradford Shearing lived in an upscale neighborhood, about 20 minutes from downtown. His wife, Patricia, was a prominent member of the local country club and several charity organizations, the kind of woman who valued reputation above almost everything else. I left an envelope in their mailbox, addressed to Patricia personally. Inside were copies of the photographs and credit card statements, showing Bradford's expensive gifts to Valerie. No note necessary. The evidence spoke for itself. That afternoon, I returned to Murphy's to wait for the fireworks to begin. Pete was working the early shift, polishing glasses and pretending not to be excited about our scheme. How long do you think it'll take? He asked. HR departments move fast when there's potential for lawsuits. I'd guess by tomorrow morning, maybe sooner. My phone rang. Valerie's name appeared on the screen. You should probably answer that, Pete suggested. I let it ring. Then I let the next 3 calls ring as well. Finally, I turned the phone off entirely. She'll figure it out soon enough, I told Pete. Right now, she's probably still thinking this is about the affair. She has no idea what's really coming. Pete raised his beer in a mock toast. To consequences, I agreed. That evening, I drove past Premier Packaging's office building. The parking garage was nearly empty, but I could see lights on in several offices. Crisis management mode, probably. HR working late, executives having emergency meetings, damage control in full swing. I wondered if Valerie and Bradford were in there, trying to figure out how their secret had been exposed. I wondered if they were blaming each other yet, or if they were still pretending this was something they could manage. Tomorrow would bring answers. Tonight, I went home to my empty house and slept better than I had in months. Friday morning exploded like a firecracker factory. My phone, which I'd turned back on over coffee, immediately started buzzing with missed calls and text messages. 17 voicemails from Valerie, each one more desperate than the last. I listened to them while making breakfast, marveling at her progression from anger to panic to something approaching hysteria. Rick, I don't know what you think you're doing, but this has gone too far. Call me back immediately. Rick, please, we can work this out. Just call me back. Rick, they're saying I might lose my job. Please, I'm begging you, call me back. The final message was barely coherent, recorded at 3 a.m. Rick, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please don't do this. Please don't destroy everything. I love you. I've always loved you. This was a mistake. Just a stupid mistake. Please call me back. No, too little. Too late. My phone rang again. This time it wasn't Valerie. It was Pete. You need to get down here, he said. Now. Trust me on this. No, dermuva. Murphy's was busier than usual for a Friday morning. I found Pete behind the bar, grinning like he'd won the lottery. Jenna Martinez is here, he said, nodding toward a corner booth. Valerie's work friend. She's been here for an hour, drinking coffee and talking to anyone who'll listen. Jenna was a gossip of the highest order. The kind of person who knew everyone's business and couldn't keep her mouth shut if her life depended on it. She worked in Premier Packaging's accounting department, and had been Valerie's closest office ally. What's she saying? Everything. Apparently, the whole place is in chaos. HR launched a full investigation yesterday afternoon. Bradford got suspended pending review. Valerie's been called in for questioning 3 times. I walked over to Jenna's booth. She looked up with red-rimmed eyes, clearly having been crying. Rick. Oh my God, Rick. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. None of us had any idea. I slid into the booth across from her. What's happening over there? It's a disaster. Complete disaster. Someone sent HR all these photos, and they're investigating everyone who might have known. They think there might be other affairs, other violations. The whole executive floor is under scrutiny.
2,000. I didn't get any jewelry.
I was ending
With a
it.
diamond goodbye gift?
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
What about Valerie? Jenna's face crumpled. She's finished. Margaret Collins called her into the office yesterday and showed her the photos. Valerie tried to deny it, but the evidence was overwhelming. They've suspended her too, pending investigations. And Bradford? His wife showed up yesterday afternoon. Patricia Shearing, you know her? She marched right into his office and started screaming. Security had to escort her out, but not before she threw his coffee mug at the wall. The whole floor heard everything. It's Menenius. I felt a warm satisfaction spreading through my chest. That must have been uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. Rick, it was a nightmare. Bradford tried to blame Valerie, said she seduced him, that he was the victim. Valerie started crying and saying it was all a misunderstanding. Nobody believed either of them. Jenna leaned forward conspiratorially. But here's the really crazy part. They found other stuff during the investigation. Bradford's been using company credit cards for personal expenses, taking clients to expensive restaurants and charging it as business meetings when it was really just him showing off. The board is furious, so it's not just about the affair anymore. Not even close. They're talking about firing both of them, maybe even criminal charges for misuse of company funds. Bradford's career is over. And Valerie, Jenna trailed off, shaking her head. What about Valerie? She's been trying to reach you for 2 days. She's desperate, Rick. She knows she messed up, and she knows you're the one who exposed them. She's been asking everyone if they know how to contact you. She can contact me the same way she always has. She just might not like what I have to say. I left Jenna at Murphy's and drove home, feeling more satisfied than I had in years. The plan was working better than I'd hoped. Valerie and Bradford weren't just facing personal consequences. Their professional lives were crumbling too. That afternoon, I finally answered one of Valerie's calls. Rick, thank God. We need to talk. I'm listening, not over the phone. Can we meet somewhere, please? I know you're angry, but we can work this out. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix, Valerie. You made your choice. It wasn't a choice. It was a mistake, a stupid mistake. Bradford took advantage of me. He's my boss. He has power over my career. I felt pressured. I almost laughed. Pressured? Is that what you call it when you're sitting on his desk with your legs wrapped around him? Silence. Then, quietly. You saw us. I saw everything. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Anything. I'll do anything to fix this. Just tell me what you want. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You wanted to play games behind my back? Fine. But now we're playing by my rules. I hung up before she could respond. The weekend passed quietly, but Monday brought fresh chaos. I returned to work at Midwest Logistics, where news of Premier Packaging's executive scandal had already spread through the industry grapevine. My coworkers offered sympathetic looks and carefully worded condolences, not quite sure how to address the fact that my wife was at the center of a corporate meltdown. Heard about the trouble over at Premier. My supervisor, Tom Bradley, said during our morning meeting. Sorry you're caught up in all that mess. Thanks, Tom. I'm managing. Take whatever time you need. Family situations can be complicated. If only he knew how uncomplicated this was becoming. Tuesday afternoon brought an unexpected visitor to my office. Margaret Collins from Premier Packaging's HR department appeared at my desk, looking professional but tired. Mr. Mason? I'm Margaret Collins. I was hoping we could talk privately. We found an empty conference room. Margaret closed the door and sat across from me, her expression serious. I want you to know that Premier Packaging takes workplace conduct violations very seriously. The situation involving your wife and Mr. Shearing is being handled according to our strictest protocols. I appreciate that. I also want you to know that we've discovered additional irregularities during our investigation. Financial discrepancies, misuse of company resources, violation of multiple policy guidelines. This goes far beyond a simple personal relationship. I nodded sympathetically. That must be very disappointing for the company. It is. Mr. Shearing has been terminated, effective immediately. Mrs. Mason's employment is also being reviewed, though her hearing isn't scheduled until next week. I see. Margaret leaned forward slightly. Mr. Mason, I have to ask, do you have any knowledge of how these photographs came to our attention? The anonymous tip that started this investigation? I met her gaze steadily. I'm afraid I don't know anything about that. I've been dealing with my own personal situation. She studied my face for a moment, then nodded. Of course, I understand this must be very difficult for you. After Margaret left, I called Pete with an update. Bradford's out? Pete sounded delighted. Completely terminated. And they're still investigating Valerie. Beautiful. What's your next move? Patience. Let the system work. But I do have one more idea. That evening, I drove to Bradford's neighborhood. His house was dark except for a few windows, and his BMW wasn't in the driveway, probably staying at a hotel while Patricia decided whether to throw him out permanently. I parked down the street and waited. Around 9 p.m., Bradford's car pulled into the driveway. He sat behind the wheel for several minutes before getting out, moving like a man carrying the weight of the world. I gave him 10 minutes to get settled, then walked up to his front door and rang the bell. Bradford answered, wearing a bathrobe and holding a glass of what looked like whiskey. His face went through several expressions when he saw me. Surprise, guilt, anger, and finally resignation. Rick, I suppose I should have expected this. Can we talk? He stepped aside to let me in. His house was impressive, marble floors, expensive furniture, the kind of place that screamed success and status. Too bad he'd thrown it all away for an affair with my wife. Patricia's not here, Bradford said, leading me to his living room. She's staying with her sister while she decides whether to file for divorce. I'm sorry to hear that. Bradford laughed bitterly. Are you? Because it seems like you've been working pretty hard to destroy both our lives. I didn't destroy anything. I just brought the truth to light. The truth. Bradford took a long drink. The truth is that your wife seduced me. She came on to me, made it clear she was available, practically threw herself at me. I was weak, and I gave in. But she started it. I felt my temper rising, but kept my voice calm. That's an interesting version of events. It's the truth. Valerie is ambitious, calculating. She saw an opportunity to advance her career and took it. I was just the means to an end. So you're the victim here. We're both victims. You, me, Patricia, even Valerie. Nobody wins in situations like this. I stood up. You're wrong about that, Bradford. I'm winning. I'm winning because I'm not a cheater, and I'm not a liar, and I'm not sitting in an expensive house making excuses for my behavior while my marriage falls apart. Bradford's face flushed. You self-righteous piece of— Careful, I interrupted. You've already lost your job and probably your wife. Don't lose your dignity, too. I left him standing in his marble foyer, clutching his whiskey glass like a lifeline. Wednesday brought the call I'd been expecting. Valerie's voice was small, defeated. Rick, they're going to fire me. The hearing is tomorrow, but Margaret Collins already told me it's just a formality. My career is over. I'm sorry to hear that. No, you're not. This is what you wanted, isn't it? Complete destruction. This is what you chose when you decided to have an affair in your office. I made a mistake. One mistake, and you've destroyed everything we built together. One mistake. Valerie, this went on for months. The hotel receipts, the expensive gifts, the lies about working late. This wasn't a mistake. It was a deliberate choice. Silence. Then, quietly. Can we meet, please? I need to see you face to face. Where? Murphy's. Tonight at 8. Pete's place. I almost smiled. She was coming to my territory now, surrounded by my friends and allies. I'll be there. That evening, Murphy's was busier than usual. Pete had made sure the word got out. Not about the meeting specifically, but that something interesting might happen. The bar was full of neighborhood regulars, coworkers from Midwest Logistics, even a few people from Premier Packaging who wanted to see how this drama would play out. Valerie arrived exactly at 8, looking nothing like the polished executive I'd married. Her hair was unkempt, her clothes wrinkled, her makeup unable to hide the exhaustion and stress. She looked around the crowded bar nervously before spotting me at a corner table. "Hello, Valerie." She sat down across from me, her hands shaking slightly. "Rick, I know you hate me. I know what I did was unforgivable, but please, can't we find some way to move forward?" "Move forward to what?" "I don't know. Counseling, maybe? A fresh start. We could move away, start over somewhere else. With what money? You're about to lose your job, remember?" Her face crumpled. I know I messed up everything. But we had 8 good years together. That has to count for something. 8 years of lies, apparently. How long has this been going on, Valerie? Really? She looked around the bar, aware that people were watching us. Can we go somewhere more private? No. Answer the question. 6 months, she whispered. It started 6 months ago. Why? I don't know. Bradford was charming, powerful. He made me feel important, special. He promised he could help my career. And what about me? What about our marriage? You were always so stable, predictable. I knew you'd always be there, so I took you for granted. I thought I could have both. I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. Do you know what the worst part is? It's not the affair. It's that you thought I was stupid enough not to figure it out. I never thought you were stupid. No? Then why did you leave credit card statements lying around? Why did you use the same perfume for him that you wore for me? Why did you think I wouldn't notice that you stopped touching me, stopped talking to me, stopped being present in our marriage? Valerie started crying, quiet tears that drew sympathetic looks from other patrons. But I felt nothing. The woman sitting across from me was a stranger who happened to share my last name. What do you want from me? She asked. What do I have to do to make this right? Nothing. There's nothing you can do, because there's nothing left to fix. So that's it? 8 years of marriage, and you're just going to throw it all away? I stood up, looking down at her tear-stained face. I didn't throw anything away, Valerie. You did. I'm just cleaning up the mess. The entire bar had gone quiet, everyone listening to our conversation. Valerie looked around desperately, aware that her humiliation was playing out in front of an audience. Please, she whispered. Don't leave me with nothing. You should have thought about that before you decided I was nothing. I walked away, leaving her sitting alone at the table. The bar remained silent until I reached the door. Then conversations resumed in hushed tones. Pete caught my eye and nodded approvingly. Outside, the evening air felt fresh and clean. I drove home to my empty house, changed the locks again just to be safe, and poured myself a glass of wine. Not Valerie's favorite vintage, but a bottle I'd been saving for a special occasion. This seemed special enough. My phone buzzed with a text message from Danny. Heard about tonight. You handled that perfectly. She's finished. And then another message, this one from Tom Bradley. Saw what happened at Murphy's. Sorry it came to that. But you did what you had to do. Word traveled fast in our neighborhood. By tomorrow, everyone would know that Valerie Mason had begged for forgiveness and been rejected. Her humiliation was complete. I sat in my living room, looking around at the house we'd shared, the life we'd built together. Tomorrow, I'd start the divorce proceedings. Next week, I'd probably have to deal with lawyers and paperwork and all the tedious details of dissolving a marriage. But tonight, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The game was over, and I had won. 3 months later, I ran into Jenna Martinez at the grocery store. She looked embarrassed to see me, probably unsure how to navigate a conversation with the man who'd orchestrated her friend's downfall. Rick, how are you doing? Good, thanks. How's everyone at Premier? Different. They brought in new management, cleaned house completely. It's actually a better place to work now. And Valerie? Jenna's expression grew uncomfortable. She moved away, got a job with a small company in another state. Starting over, I guess. Good for her. Bradford's having a harder time. Patricia took him for everything in the divorce, and nobody in the industry will hire him. Word gets around, you know. I nodded sympathetically. That's unfortunate. Rick, I have to ask, are you okay? Really okay? I know this whole thing must have been terrible for you. I considered the question seriously. Was I okay? My marriage was over. My wife was gone. My comfortable life had been completely upended. By most measures, I should have been devastated. Instead, I felt lighter than I had in years. I'm better than okay, I told Jenna. I'm free. And I was. Free from lies, free from pretense, free from the exhausting work of maintaining a relationship with someone who saw me as nothing more than a safety net while she pursued her real interests elsewhere. That evening, I met Pete at Murphy's for our weekly drink. The bar had become something of a neighborhood legend since the night of my confrontation with Valerie. People still talked about it, and Pete never tired of telling the story to anyone who'd listen. "So what's next?" Pete asked, sliding a beer across the bar. "You going to start dating again?" "Eventually, but not yet. I'm enjoying the quiet." "Fair enough. You earned it." I raised my glass in a toast. "To consequences." Pete grinned and clinked his glass against mine. "To consequences." Outside, Cleveland's skyline glittered in the distance. Somewhere out there, Valerie was starting over, trying to rebuild the career and reputation she'd destroyed. Somewhere else, Bradford was probably doing the same. I wished them well, in an abstract sort of way. After all, everyone deserved a second chance. But they'd have to earn theirs the hard way, just like I'd earned mine. Nynamoenhain Nothald. November 7th, 2025, 13 hours, 33 minutes, and 19 seconds.